Rivers is going to have Damian Lillard run very fast out of town. Does he help them win? You're under 500. Aaron Judge helps the Yankees win. You're paying the player $300 million. You better be sure that that guy's going to help you get over the hump. For some reason, this guy is completely lost on calling plays. Maybe he's a therapist. Jackson cried to the referee. No, he didn't. We are back for a new show of the Sports Loudmouth. I'm your host, Errol Marks. My co-host, Speedy Petey, the executive producer, Mr. Aaron Fishman, and our Sports Minute, Mr. Tommy Scoops. Remember, you can call us at 631-672-3108. Go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. Check out all our shows throughout the week, including The Loudmouth with me and Speedy Petey every single Tuesdays and Thursdays at 7 p.m. All you have to do to tune in and check out our local listings is go to our website at www.worldwidesportsradio.com. We'll be talking to former Orioles, Blue Jays, and Yankees pitcher. Our friend Josh Tower has been joining us. He's over there, if I'm not mistaken, in Vegas.
Yes, he's in Vegas, and he's actually he's working with he's doing a lot of drills with baseball players, youth baseball leagues. He's squeezing time in between two different demonstrations he has in batting cages today.
He's not playing t-ball or any of that stuff.
Not that I know of, but he's doing some demonstrations in batting cages.
He's actually swinging at
apparently he's teaching them.
Is he a pitcher?
He was a pitcher, yes, but he's doing
he
fundamentals as well.
Is he a good hitter? I mean,
last year he showed us a wiffle ball field. It doesn't take that overnight.
He said he's really good at wiffle ball.
Yes, he did.
I was really good at wiffle ball when I was a child, and I knew how to throw a curve and a slider. I mean, it's so much easier throwing it with a wiffle ball than throwing it with a real baseball.
I'm sure he had about 15 different pitch combinations he could do.
You don't have to grab a seam. You just have to throw it the right way. Use different arm angles and different rotations on the wiffle ball to get the ball where you want it to go. And you don't even know where the ball is going most of the time. That's the best part of it. I mean, again, over the years, a lot of these pitchers didn't know where they were throwing the ball anyways.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? It worked for them. It doesn't work anymore. But why don't we get into it? Anthony Edwards told Wall Street Journal that he believes Michael Jordan is the only player from the past in the NBA and the NBA eras that had skills. He added that once Kobe Bryant started become dominant in the NBA, there were many players that had skills. He added that Michael Jordan's era was a few elite players playing against plumbers. That's what he said. He said they're like a few players playing like plumbers. A study of The Atlantic shows that the average of the NBA player were 4 to 7% better than the 20th century. Edwards previously called himself the number one option on Team USA when he didn't even start. Fans also compared Edwards' playoff run to be like Michael Jordan's, which Edwards thought was ridiculous. Anthony Edwards is absolutely right. Now, I don't know if Anthony Edwards was the best option for Team USA basketball, but he's right about Michael Jordan. But again, he goes back. Anthony Edwards wasn't alive when Karl Malone was playing or David Robinson was playing or even Charles Barkley when he was at the top of his game. And if he was alive, he was a baby. So he really doesn't remember any of these guys when they played. I do remember Michael Jordan. I do remember Charles Barkley. I do remember David Robinson. I do remember Patrick Ewing and Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and some of the great basketball players of that era. Do I believe Michael Jordan was the only player that had skills? No, I did not. A lot of these guys had skills. Were they Michael Jordan? No. I don't even think there are players right now in the league that are Michael Jordan-esque. Could you imagine Michael Jordan's skills in this game now today? I mean, he would be much more athletic. He was so athletic over then, and then could you imagine how athletic he would be now? With the game completely different. It's become more of an offensive game. The training is different now. These athletes have better facilities to work out and train and build their bodies up. It's a different game now. Michael Jordan would have been an absolutely different player, probably bigger, stronger. When you look at guys like LeBron James and you look at his body structure, that's the new style of basketball player the NBA is looking for. Are there guys the size of LeBron James? No. LeBron James is built like a tight end in the NFL. But that's the way the game is transitioning into. Now, Anthony Edwards had a lot to say about this. And I'm sure he had a lot to say about Steve Kerr. So does half the players, half the youngsters that were playing for Team USA. Hence the reason why Steve Kerr, after winning the gold medal, stepped down as the head coach of Team USA. And the reason why is LeBron James is gone. Kevin Durant is gone. Steph Curry is gone. These guys are not going to be in the next Olympics. They're going to be retired. They're going to be hanging out with their families, either being broadcasters, building their companies, their businesses. This is a different game now. You're going to have those Anthony Edwards. You're going to have the Tatums. You're going to have the Browns. You're going to have these type of players now to build your team. Maybe a Jalen Brunson in the future. It's a different game. The NBA is different. Now, he mentioned Kobe Bryant and his dominance in the NBA after Michael Jordan. He also said a lot of these players transitioned after Kobe Bryant with skills. Michael Jordan was the pinnacle of what the NBA transitioned to these days. A lot of these players, you mentioned Anthony Edwards. You look at Tatum. You look at Jaylen Brown. Look how great of a two-way player he is. Michael Jordan was one of the best two-way players in NBA history. Michael Jordan was over a 10-time first-team All-NBA defensive player. He was a first-team All-NBA offensive player. You look at Michael Jordan and what he did for the game of basketball internationally, nationally. What he brought to the Olympics in '92 will change everything for the NBA now and forever. And now you have guys like LeBron James and Kobe Bryant. And at one point, you had Timmy Duncan. Even though he was boring to play, he was a big face for the NBA. And the transition now to the Kevin Durants and the Steph Currys, and then when they're gone, the Anthony Edwards. The athletic ability of Wembanyama and what he's going to transition the game to. The big man. We're going to see these bigs actually shoot three-pointers now, which they have been over the last couple of years, transitioning their games. I mean, did you ever see Patrick Ewing shoot up a three? I mean, maybe once or twice. He wasn't a good three-point shooter. The bigs did not shoot threes. Now it's a different game. You have to be a three-point shooter if you're a 5 or you're a 4. If you don't have that game, it's never going to work in the NBA. Anthony Edwards had a lot to say. I read different things. I mean, Speedy gave me a little bit of a fill-in for the monologue, missing some words, obviously. But nevertheless, Anthony Edwards is right about a lot of these different things. He is. He really is. To say that Michael Jordan was the only one with skills at that time, Larry Bird had a lot of skill. I don't know what Anthony Edwards was watching. Maybe he was washing. He was washing in his mother's womb because he wasn't even alive to see Larry Bird at the top of his game or Magic Johnson at the top of his game. It's a different world. It was a different world in the 80s. Isaiah Thomas really changed the point guard position. I mean, Anthony Edwards probably never got a chance to see Isaiah Thomas play. I mean, he's seen clips, but you never got a chance to see him play. Athletically gifted, can shoot all over the court, can get into the paint, dominate in the paint for a guy that was only like 6 foot. He's one of the the guys that changed the game at the point guard position athletically. He won back-to-back championships with the Detroit Pistons, with Joe Dumars and Bill Laimbeer and Dennis Rodman. Again, we could go back and forth and go back and forth with some of these NBA players and what Steph Curry has said over the last couple of months, saying he's the greatest point guard to ever play the game. Or LeBron James coming out last year saying that he was going to retire, and then at the ESPY Awards saying that he's coming back, and that his wife went out there on the ESPY Awards saying he's the greatest basketball player to ever play this game. Now, you can argue that because he's going to have every single record, but that's all because of the longevity. The game is different now. Michael Jordan played 82 games a season because he knew everybody was coming to watch him play. When was the last time LeBron James played 82 games in a season? It's a different game. It is. Anywhere you slice it or you dice it, anybody that is a basketball fan out there, and there are a lot of them, and I'm a huge basketball fan, Anthony Edwards said some interesting things and said some stupid things. He's young. He's 22, 23 years old, still trying to find his way. He's the next leader of this Team USA team. You best believe it. If Team USA is going to be as good as they've been in the last, 16 years of, the Olympic basketball, he is going to play a big part on the developmental part of these youngsters, these up-and-coming United States basketball players. Because internationally, it's growing. Luka Doncic, Wembanyama, the Joker, all these guys. France is going to be good for many, many years. Canada is only getting better with Shai. It's become an international game now. You could argue whatever you want to argue. You can say whatever you want. Anthony Edwards, I would take a lot what Anthony Edwards saying, and I would take it and put it in a box. I agree. And take some of the stuff that he said and put it in a box. I disagree. Michael Jordan is absolutely the greatest basketball player ever to play. Probably had the most skills we've ever seen an NBA player have. And that includes Allen Iverson. And even guys that we mention in the league right now we don't like. And you know who I'm speaking about. You can have all the skills in the world, but if you can't put it together and win, it doesn't matter. And that goes for Anthony Edwards. He's with the Timberwolves. He just got a big contract. If he don't win, it's not going to make a difference. Allen Iverson said something very, very interesting recently in an interview. And he said, I do believe I'm one of the greatest two guards to ever play the game. But he said, you know what? I missed out on winning a championship. And because of that, you can't put me in the top 5. Allen Iverson said that. You have to win at least once. You have to do it before you declare yourself as one of the elite, one of the greatest players at your position, one of the greatest players to play in this game.
Yeah, you look at the statement that he said. I think part of it is true because I think you're looking at Wembanyama, Nikola Jokic, and maybe Luka Doncic, like those 3 international guys as prototypes maybe you did not see as much in the past.
Thank you, Michael Jordan.
Right. Nikola Jokic, the way he passes as a center, the craftiness that he has, the way he dribbles the ball, I don't think you ever saw that kind of thing with a center. Now, that doesn't say there aren't centers that weren't good passers. Tim Duncan, like you mentioned, Hakeem Olajuwon was a good passer. Like there were good centers that could pass the ball. But at the same time, Anthony, like there's plenty of players that transition in the game of unique prototypes. You mentioned Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. Magic Johnson was the first of those big point guards. Like you would never see a Russell Westbrook or a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander without somebody like a Magic Johnson. Same kind of thing with Larry Bird. You wouldn't see the prototypes of Luka Doncic or Jason Tatum, these bigger guys that could shoot threes, Kevin Durant, without somebody like Larry Bird changing the game in that way. I'm not saying you're wrong, Anthony Edwards, on the fact that the identity was a little different. It was more position specific where the point guards had these skills. Centers has these skills. It's a little more versatile today. that does not mean that you could say nobody else had skills besides Michael Jordan. There were other well-rounded players.
Every team had an elite player in that time. Every team. Houston had Olajuwon. Portland had Drexler. I mean, if you go up and down the league, every single one of those teams had an elite player. There are teams right now in the NBA that don't have elite players. They don't. Houston doesn't have an elite player, not yet.
The Nets have no good players.
The Nets don't even have any good players. I mean, we could go through teams right now in the NBA that you can argue don't have elite players. They don't. But you don't need elite players anymore to win championships, as we've proven that. The game is changed. Now, again, you can argue that statement too, because over the last couple of years, I mean, if you look at the Knicks, do they really have an elite player? I mean, Jalen Brunson's becoming that, but he's not an elite player yet. He's done it really 1.5 years. If he does it one more full year, we can argue that Jalen Brunson is an elite player. Now, do I think already that Jalen Brunson's an elite player? Yes, but other people would argue that because he hasn't done it long enough. And remember, he was a second-round draft pick, and the Knicks underpaid him to bring him here, and they're underpaying him for a second contract. So, obviously, now he wants to win, and I do believe Jalen Brunson is quite capable of bringing a championship home for the New York Knicks. I still look at the Knicks. They don't have an elite player. So you're going up and down these rosters, and you're arguing, well, in the 90s, they were a bunch of plumbers. They played against a bunch of plumbers. Really? I mean, Phoenix, in those days, they had Jason Kidd. They had Stephon Marbury. These guys were elite players. I mean, that was in the 2000 era. You had Charles Barkley. You had Kevin Johnson. I mean, if you look at that time and you look at all these teams, San Antonio had David Robinson. If I go through all these rosters and these teams, every one of those teams had an elite player that changed their team or changed the dimension of their city. Did Dennis Rodman not change the dimension of Detroit and those bad boy Pistons? Everybody said Bill Laimbeer and Joe Dumars and Isaiah Thomas were the bad boys. No. You're right, Carl. The Bucks had no one in the 90s. I have to go back, but they had Ray Allen, didn't they? Wasn't
for a little bit, yeah.
Ray Allen was in the 90s. Wasn't he?
For like 2 years he was with the Bucks that he was traded. So
I have to go back and look, but in the 90s, I think that was in the early 2000s, actually, Ray Allen. Okay. So it wasn't the 90s, but I have to look. I got to go back and look at it. But most of the teams had elite players, or at least one elite player.
And Carlos mentions the Clippers. The Clippers were just dysfunctional mess until Steve Ballmer bought the team.
When the Clippers weren't they built in the 90s? Weren't they?
Yeah, they were the San Diego Conquistadors at the time.
They were an expansion team in the 90s. So I don't even look at the Clippers as one of those teams.
I mean, yeah, they were the exception to some of the rules where you had those like fast track expansion teams like Miami and the Hornets and teams like that. I remember
when they drafted, wasn't Ola Candy or somebody that was their first round draft pick? One of their first round draft pick, Ola Candy. I think he was a power forward or center or something of that magnitude.
I don't know offhand, but I know, like, I think the reason he's saying that is probably because other teams got such a big uptick. Like Orlando had the finals run with Shaq. Miami had those great teams then. It just, the Clippers were the exception to the rule at that time.
Thank you,
Carl. Fast ones.
And I'm just saying, for Anthony Edwards to come out and say that that most of these guys played against plumbers in the night, that's a lie. That's not true. That is not true. And I listen, Anthony Edwards is a great player. He has his own opinion. Dominique Wilkins, absolutely, with the Hawks. I mean, he has his own opinions, and he's young, and he doesn't obviously know the history of the NBA. But that doesn't take away his skill and how talented he is. He's fantastic. He really is. And he deserves a lot of credit of the developmental position that he has built for the NBA. And what is Anthony Edwards? Is he a 3? Is he a 2? He can play multiple positions. And that's the NBA now. If you want to be a great NBA player, you have to defend multiple positions. You have to play multiple positions if you want to be an elite player in this league. It's a different game now. It really is.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the difference with his statement, too, and like saying that there's no elite players, no skilled players in that time, which I think it's a little too extreme. Now, point guards did not have to like shoot as much as they do now. Centers did not have to pass as much as they do now or shoot as much as they do now. And I think that part of it, the versatility end of the game with those good teams, not even the teams that have just all elite players, the teams that were well-built good teams have that kind of thing. Take a mold like the Celtics. The Celtics have wings that could be 2s, 3s, and 4s. They have point guards that could easily play the 2 just based on height. Not necessarily based on skill, but based on height. And there's a kind of a height requirement for this kind of thing now as well, where maybe the NBA didn't have it that back then. And then maybe that's where he's coming out with the plumbers comment that they're all like weak guys, but like, it's still a silly comment because there were enough guys that were longer point guards still at that time. They just didn't shoot as well. So is shooting the only skill that the NBA needs? No, it's a big part, but it's not the only thing.
I remember Rolando Blackman. He was actually a pretty good player. And then he went to the Knicks and he sucked.
Yeah. Not the first time.
I mean, Rolando Blackman, when he came into the league, was pretty damn good. He was a good shooter. He really, he was a different type of player, different type of prototype player. But that's the game. That's the transition of the game. You're going to Mark Price from the Cavaliers.
Yep.
I mean, there were just so many, even in Indianapolis. I mean, in Indiana, they had Reggie Miller. They had, Schmidt. They had players, Mark Jackson. They had good players. They were elite players. Say whatever you want about them. They were elite. Nets point guard Dennis Schroder calls Kevin Durant weak about tweeting about Team USA winning the gold medal. The beef started with when Schroder called European basketball a high IQ basketball, while American basketball is just entertainment. Durant tweeted after the gold medal, IQ and entertainment, huh? Stephen A. Smith called Schroder for going after KD, saying, how dare you say something like that to a legend like Durant? Both Kobe Bryant and LeBron James have taken shots at American youth basketball programs in the past, saying AAU basketball programs don't teach players an all-around game of basketball. You have NBA superstars coming out and speaking about the AAU leagues right now for Team USA basketball. Michael Jordan has taken shots at American basketball now. Now, I don't know if anybody got a chance to see The Last Dance. And if you didn't, shame on you. Go check it out. The game after the Dream Team changed a lot. Changed a lot internationally, because a lot of these international soccer players or these youngsters that were playing soccer all over the world, in Russia, Lithuania, Spain, Portugal, wanted to be Michael Jordan. They wanted to be Air Jordan. They couldn't afford sneakers. They played without them. You look at the game now, and Dennis Schroder is right in a lot of ways. That you need high IQ basketball to play the international game. If you haven't checked out the international game in Israel or Spain or Lithuania or even China, well, then go check it out, because they do actually air some of those games. If you have a stick, I mean, it's illegal, but if you have a stick, you have a chance to go and get a chance to see some of these great young youth basketball leagues all over the world. How did they find the Greek Freak? How was Giannis discovered? Giannis and his family were not from Greece. They snuck into Greece. I think they were Nigerian.
Yep.
They almost died. And again, you have to do things and you have to go through things before you can understand the transition of what you need to do to become a superstar basketball player, football player, soccer player, hockey player. Kevin Durant is a great player. He's a Hall of Famer. He's going to go down as one of the best wing shooters we've ever seen. Long, with a 7'6" wingspan, unbelievable shooter, unbelievable range. Everybody keeps talking about Steph Curry. Go watch Kevin Durant when he was young. I saw him at Rucker Park live. I saw Kevin Durant 3 years into his career at Rucker Park live. absolutely shooting full court shots and hitting them. It was unbelievable. I didn't even know who he was. I got a chance to watch him play some college ball at Texas. I'm not going to lie, but I didn't know who he was. I didn't even think he was the best player in that draft. We all know who went number one, who barely had an NBA career because of a foot injury. But here's the thing. American basketball is not what it used to be. It's not. And internationally, we're going to see up-and-coming and international players that are going to be better than these American players. We already have. Luka Doncic and Nikola Jokic are the two best players right now in the NBA. Argue whatever you want. These two guys are the best basketball players in the NBA. And guess what they are? They're white. I know nobody wants to hear it, but they are. It's a different game now. You have to play in so many different facets of the game. You have to understand so many facets of the game. You can't just be an offensive player now. You got to play two-dimensional basketball, or you're never going to get the money that these guys are making. And now you are, because they're paying guys that don't even step on a court $13 million. And you say, Keith, you say Luka plays zero defense. Luka's a pretty good defender. He's a pretty good defender. Here's the thing. We can argue what Schroeder's trying to say. We could argue, well, obviously, Kevin Durant, how defensive he gets, because Kevin Durant is a defensive guy.
Yeah.
He cries about a lot of different things, makes excuses. Keith, we'll get into the Kevin Durant, the whole thing. You think Kevin Durant plays more defense than Luka Doncic? You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. Here's the facts. If you look at this game right now, and you look at guys like Dennis Schroder, Dennis Schroder should not be speaking for the international game, because who the hell is Dennis Schroder? I want to hear the other players. I want to hear the superstar players come out like Giannis, like Luka, like those type of players, and speak out on the international game. But when you have Kobe Bryant and LeBron James and Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley, and those type of players come out and say that the AAU basketball programs are not what they used to be, that is scary. Because you could say whatever you want. The USA is the elite of the elite when it comes to basketball, and it should always be that way. Look at the NHL, okay? Canada, besides over, in the 80s with Russia, Canada has always been the greatest hockey place in the world. If you want to be a hockey star, you got to go to Canada. You got to train in Canada. But it's changing now. Sweden's better. Finland's better. The United States is better. Why? Because of the training, the facilities. There are just as many facilities here in the United States as there is in Canada for hockey. Look at the growth of hockey here in New York. 6 Long Islanders were drafted in last year's draft in the NHL in the top 3 rounds. It is going to change. Everything changes. The international game is going to catch up to the American game. We are not going to be as dominant as we once were. And there's reasons behind it. Now, do we have the better facilities? Yes, we do. We do. Because we are the center of the world. We have the best nukes. We have the best guns. We have the best everything. We have the best food. But there are countries and there are players that are grown into nothing. They have nothing. They come from families of nothing. So do these guys here in the United States that you see after 1 year, they want to go into the NBA because they need to take care of their families. Now these international players, they don't even want to play college ball. They want to play in the G League 1 year, make some money, and then go into the NBA draft. Why? Because it's all about taking care of their families. Now, do I think the European basketball game has caught up to United States basketball? Not fully. Not yet. Not yet. Not quite yet. But do I think in 10 years they will? Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to tell you this right now. What Steve Kerr did in that Olympics to Anthony Edwards, to Tatum, what Grant Hill not letting Kawhi Leonard play, and Jaylen Brown being a part of this team. Why would Jaylen Brown want to play for this team in 4 years? Why? Look how they treated him. Would you want to go and play for Team USA basketball after the way they treated him? I understand, Keith, they won the gold medal. But it's about the future of the game, not about now. They were going to win no matter what. They were. I picked them to lose. You know why I picked them to lose? Because I wanted.
And it's drama. Like, there's more storylines in America with the NBA offseason than there is during the season. Like, yeah, there's going to be obviously more hype in the playoffs and stuff like that. But all the NBA, but not to the same level. You're not driving Luka Doncic.
All right. And he says I'm reading what Keith's saying. There's no way they win without LeBron James and Curry. How do we know? How do we know? If we saw Anthony Edwards played as much as LeBron James, how do we know he doesn't get hot? If Jason Tatum actually played as much as Stephen Curry, how do we know he doesn't get hot? We don't know that. How could you say that? Anthony Edwards is a top 7 player. Jason Tatum is a top 7 player. How could you say that? That's your opinion.
There's nothing definitive that says that they wouldn't because of height and because of skill, like we were discussing before. All these guys have that, and that's where still the U.S. is going to have that kind of advantage was when it comes to like the money. You said the money, the facilities that are there. But that being said, Schroder is 100% right where these guys are playing for their individual egos, their brands, their contracts, all that stuff. And I think there is a fundamentally sound era with this European team because they have to go through a lot. And Carl saying Schroder is not wrong. No one beats the U.S. consistently right now. Things will change. Yeah, but Schroder is onto something when it comes to the fact that these guys are playing a more humble game. Like even the international superstars that are in the NBA today, besides Joel Embiid, like none of them are really coming off as that cocky either, the same way that LeBron is cocky and James Harden is cocky and all these guys. Like that kind of thing I think is transitioning for the good in the NBA, and maybe they can latch on from the U.S. players.
Again, Steve Kerr can say whatever he wants. He can go to, Democratic conventions, and I'm not going to really get too deep into what he said because, everybody knows I'm not a big Steve Kerr fan. I never was. And I think he's just replicating his style of coaching to Phil Jackson. He could say whatever he wants, and he can be whoever he wants to be. We're in the United States. We're in America, and you can do whatever the hell you want. I never liked Steve Kerr. I don't like the way he coaches. And that's good. If anybody thinks that Steve Kerr is a great coach, well, shame on you because obviously you don't watch enough basketball. But United States basketball is different. It's different. And it should worry you as a United States basketball fan. Because we haven't seen a Kobe Bryant or a LeBron James or a Michael Jordan come out in a very long time. There are none. We're hoping Anthony Edwards turns into that. We're hoping. Hopefully he does become that player, that dominant player that we've learned to love in the United States game of basketball. But it's all about cockiness now. It's about who can do a tomahawk jam or who could do this and who could be fancy, and get triple doubles. And it's not about team basketball. Internationally, it's all about team basketball.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's also a big reason why I think you're going to see the game grow even more once these other countries get more investment into the sport too. Like you were saying, France. Like France has this really good program now of these youngsters, 2 draft picks. Obviously, Wemby, who's a generational talent, and
these French guys that they drafted weren't that good in the tournament.
No, they weren't. But even so, like the development of the program, the investment into that kind of program as a primary sport is going to take a bigger deal. And like you said, with a sport like hockey, like Canada might always be thought of as the powerhouse. powerhouse, but other countries are going to catch up, and because of the development programs that they're going to put in. Now, obviously, what's happening in Russia right now, maybe it's not the same over there, but like still the same kind of thing can happen in other European countries to get that kind of level. The only reason the U.S. has that significant advantage right now is because of the funding, so they can get the athleticism the same way, because they have a sport in basketball that outside of football is taking over as its primary, where it might be a third or fourth tier thing somewhere else and not get that same level of funding.
All right, Brickfishin, I'd like to know his opinion on this story. I mean, obviously, Kevin Durant and Dennis Schroder don't like each other. I'm not a big fan of Kevin Durant, as everybody knows. I have my own opinion towards him as a player. I think he's a fantastic player. There's no doubt his dominance of what the game has transitioned into, these wing shooting guys that can really dominate games. And I believe that Golden State doesn't win those 2 titles without him. He was the MVP of that team. He was the best player on that team. I mean, your thoughts, Fish, on this whole story?
I think this is like very eerily similar to the old argument of people that don't like the NBA because they love college basketball and the way the game flows better. You hear that from a lot of people that they don't like the NBA. They think it's too showy, too me first, too much dribbling around, ISO ball. You know, we just watched Steph Curry win the Olympics for Team USA, not passing to anybody and just chucking up that last shot, which went in because it was amazing. He's amazing. But, I mean, LeBron and Durant were wide open on that play, too, and he was double covered. The theory is in international play that everyone's moving the ball. It's more of a motion offense. You don't really need the big rim protector in the same way. You just need people to run the rim because there's no goaltending. So there's a lot of different play aspects of the game that make it more, I guess, aesthetically pleasing if you like the team game of basketball, the way that it was taught at the middle school, at the high school level when you were growing up, but maybe not at this AAU level. In AAU, they're kind of trying. It's a little bit different. I coached middle school basketball for 2 years, and I had 2 different teams of AAU kids on my program, and I had to learn both of their offenses so I could run plays that they could run. I literally had to do that because that's what they do all the time. They play so much ball, and that's great. But at the same time, who's teaching them? There's too many people learning different things. There's a lot of me first because of that. Everyone's selling them the moon. It's a very weird culture. I couldn't believe how competitive it was with the AAU coaches, and I'm just dealing with like 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. So to expand that to the later stages of AAU and to what we see internationally, it's hard to disagree with Schroder if you like that form of basketball that we all remember. It's not really what has shown to win. Curry changed the game. Everyone's playing 5 out, chucking the ball up, because threes are worth more than 2. It's maybe not the way that we like the game. And until they change the rules, they changed the rules on Jordan with illegal defense. They're going to have to deal with this.
And here's the thing. I've also heard over the last couple of years, the NBA bringing a 4-point play. I don't want to see that. The NBA is always trying to make the game more fun to watch for these youngsters to want to be the next Steph Curry. And yes, Steph Curry has really changed the development of the style of game, because now, you don't have to be a 6'6", 6'7", guard or of that magnitude, because you don't need to jam. If you have a good shot, you can make an NBA team. You could be a superstar in this league. Hey, Steph Curry did it at 6'3". Why can't I? That's the game. That's the transition of the game. Everybody's trying to mimic those players, just like Steph Curry, just like LeBron James, just like Kobe Bryant. We're trying to mimic who? Michael Jordan. Michael Jeffrey Jordan.
Yeah, and Fish, you bring up a good point too with the coaching, because I think a lot of these international superstars, even in today's game too, a lot of them get along with these coaches a lot better than some of the top stars at the American level at certain points. Like LeBron always is getting coaches fired all the time because he wants to play his game.
And Keith, I don't know what you're watching, but about a year and a half ago, there were a lot of NBA players putting stories out there that there should be a 4-point play and that the NBA was going to bring it to the All-Star game. So I don't know where you're and where you've been, but it's been happening, and the NBA is trying to find new ways to make the game more fun to watch. So just go look. Did you see the All-Star game this year, that the floor was moving, that they've made it more I forget what they did with the floor. It's become different, and the NBA is going to implicate new rules and new stuff to the game to make it more fun for these youngsters, these foreign players, these AAU players that want to go and leave baseball or leave football or leave basketball. I don't know what that sound is. It's going from something like mute his thing. It's some kind of sound over there. Fire department of that magnitude. But honestly, this is something that the NBA needs to understand. The game is changing. It is. And fans need to understand that. And it's not beneficial when it comes to guys like Dennis Schroder or even Kevin Durant going back and forth at one another. Because the truth is, both of them are not wrong. Mm-hmm. Both of them are not wrong. But I do believe that the international game is catching up. There's no question that it is.
And Kevin Durant will always be weak because he always has to resort to Twitter to solve his problems with his 6 burner accounts.
I don't understand that. I really don't, but whatever. SNY's Ian Begley reports that the Knicks are not expected to extend Julius Randle until during or after the season. He mentioned a big reason why is that the Knicks would be ineligible to trade Randle at the 2025 trade deadline if they extend him now. Randle is eligible for a 3-year, $109 million extension that can be signed anytime between now and June 30th. Randle will be playing on a $28.9 million deal this season and has a $30.9 million player option. Randle averaged 24 points per game, 9.2 rebounds per game, and 5 assists per game in 46 games before injuring his shoulder last season. I mean, if you're a Knicks fan, I think you should be happy with this. And there's a lot of reasons why. And I'm going to explain why. I am not saying that Julius Randle isn't a big fit or does not fit this New York Knicks team the way it is built. I think right now, there's no doubt he's the number 2 guy. No doubt. You want to say Mikal Bridges? He's not yet the number 2 guy. And we don't know if OG's the number 2 guy. But the Knicks have a lot of different combination of players that can take over these games. They do. It's Jalen Brunson's team. And I think this is the reason why they're undecided if they're going to extend Julius Randle. They want to make this his team. They brought all his friends here. They brought Josh Hart, Dante DiVincenzo. They were all part of his wedding party. Mikal Bridges. They brought all these guys here to make Jalen Brunson happy. Hence the reason why Jalen Brunson took about $80, $90 million less. If he just waited one more year, he'd be making $250 or $260 million because he's a top NBA player. He took less because he wants to win, and he wants to win here. Is Julius Randle a guy that you can call a winner? Is he a winner moving forward for this New York Knicks team? Can he stay healthy, which he hasn't been for the last 3 years? He's always hurt. And then he comes back and he throws up bricks in the playoffs. He's not a good playoff player. They need to see Julius Randle do what he did last year when OG Anunoby was traded here. He was a different player. He was a more team player. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was R.J. Barrett. Maybe R.J. Barrett was taking away the spotlight away from Julius Randle. Maybe he was. I just want to let everybody know I have a sinus infection, so I'm breathing and talking out of my nose. It's very, very hard to do that. So just bear with me here. I'm on antibiotics and everything. It's not very easy, by the way. I don't know how I'm doing it, but it's working. Julius Randle is a guy that is not a two-way player. He's not. He's an isolated player. And he wants the ball all the time. And he realized last year, it's not his team. It's not his team anymore. It's Jalen Brunson's team. And he has got to be number 2. And he might even be number 3 or could be number 4 this year. And I don't know if the Knicks believe that he can bear that. Because 2 years ago, when all this was going on, he was bitching and moaning. He was sobbing after the games that he wasn't getting the ball at the end of the game. And he wasn't the guy. It's not his team anymore. I don't know if it ever was. Players, I know there are a lot of Knicks fans that like Julius Randle. I like Julius Randle. I think he's a nice player, but is he a superstar? I don't care if he's been to 2 All-Star games since he's been here in New York. I don't care. I don't care that he averages 24 points last year and 9 rebounds and 5 assists. Is he a winner? Can we win with Julius Randle as the number 2? And my answers to that, not a chance. I don't think he's worth 3 years, $109 million. I think he's, 32 now? How many years does he have left as a top-end player? Now, I don't know how old he is. I think he's 32. You can look it up.
29.
Oh, okay, so he's 29. He's got 2 years left. By the time he's available to get that extension, if he wants that extension, he is 32. Is he worth? There's more of that sound, so mute his thing. I don't know what's going on with his mic. It's something with his mic now. It's something. I don't know what's going on over there. 3 years, $109 million is a lot of money. And if the Knicks give him 3 years, $109 million, how are they going to divvy out the money in the future to guys like Dante DiVincenzo, who has, 2 years? I think he signed a 3-year deal.
Yep.
And Josh Hart, who signed a 3-year extension last year. So all these guys have 2 years left. How are they going to be able to re-sign them if they have no money to do that? And here's the thing. OG just got big money. If they get rid of Julius Randle, if there's a guy they want to bring in, if there's a missing piece that they want to bring in when Julius Randle is off the cap, they could bring that guy in. They could bring in another great player. Not a dominant player, not a superstar player, but a good player to play with OG and Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges. And here's another thing. They're expected to give Mikal Bridges an extension before the season's end. So they have to make sure. And here's another thing. They want to make sure that if Julius Randle has a good season and they decide they want to move him, they can move him. If they give him that extension, they cannot move him in this year's trade deadline.
Right. And I think that's the big decision that they're not making impulsively, because we've seen the Knicks in the past operate on just impulse. If they don't get a first-tier free agent, they make a panic move and overpay for somebody, or they make a really bad trade and they never have any draft picks. This, I think, is a very good patient approach by Leon Rose, because they know Mikal Bridges. They think he could take a pay cut. There's been a lot of rumors of that, like Jalen Brunson did, to keep all those guys together to make that kind of thing work. And they can't sign him until October when the season starts. So if he does that, maybe it gives leeway for them to give Julius Randle. So there's no reason to do it impulsively right now. See how it fits. He hasn't played since January. He hasn't fit with a lot of these new guys yet. Yeah, he played well for 2 weeks.
They're not extending him. I'm telling you, if they're not extending him now, they're not going to extend him in the middle of the season. I think their plan is, if he has a good season and he's playing well, to move him. They expect Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby to be those number 2 and number 3 guy. I'm telling you right now, they're going to rotate this roster, figure out how this roster is going to work. In Thibodeau's eyes, I believe that Julius Randle doesn't fit the way they plan to play this new year. So I think that's the reason why Julius Randle is not getting an extension. Is Julius Randle going to be pissed off all season long? Only time will tell. I don't know why he's going to be pissed off. He's still making $28.9 million. Right. And next year he has a player option, so he can opt in and still make $30.9 million. He's playing for a team that has a chance to win a championship. So what is he crying about?
Yeah, that's the biggest what if with Julius Randle, because last year it seemed like he was playing a little more of a team game finally, a more well-rounded game, but the years before that he wasn't. And
you don't like it? You shouldn't have signed signed the contract 2 years ago.
Correct. And that's where he's going to have to buy into this team being one of the top 5 teams in the NBA right now. And he has to know that I don't really care about the labels of who's the 3rd, 4th, 5th option, whatever, but you have to buy into at least more of a team mentality where his inefficiency and his shooting woes at certain points, especially in the 4th quarter, cannot cost them games. And that's where I think the Knicks still have to stay patient with that to see what kind of approach he has, in addition to the fact that he's also very injury prone. And can you trust that kind of thing for somebody giving him an extension at 30 years old when you have a lot of other guys that you could pay right now and try to keep those guys together?
He will be 30 before the season starts. He will be 30 before the season starts. That means in 2 years, he'll be 32. That's where I was coming at. And if you extend him for 3 more years, that will start after this coming year. So he'll be 31 next year. And by the time 3 years, he'll be 34, 35 years old. He is done. His career is over. Remember, Julius Randle's game is used from athleticism for his size. As you get older, at his size, what is he, 6'8", 6'9"? He's athletic inside the paint. He gets beaten up in the paint. How many years does he have left at the top of his game? If I were the Knicks, I'd sit back, trade him at the trade deadline, bring in another defensive piece or bring in a piece that fits this roster, and then decide what you're going to do in filling in that spot in the future. Because to me, they still have money. Leon Rose has worked his wonders with these contracts. I mean, the only contract that I'm still hoping and praying that it works is the OG Anunoby one, because I think they gave OG a lot of money. The highest paid player right now on this Knicks team is OG Anunoby. Who would have thought that? I mean, Jalen Brunson took less. Mikal Bridges is going to take less. Dante DiVincenzo took an unbelievable deal. I mean, he's making, what, $12 million a year for the next 2 years? I mean, Josh Hart's making $12 million a year, $13 million a year. These guys are underpaid. Everybody's underpaid. Even Mitchell Robinson's underpaid. Leon Rose is a genius. Say whatever you want about him. He doesn't speak to the press. He doesn't talk to anybody. Why does he need to? Everything he's touched turned to gold, turned to platinum. Speedy, you can get on your knees and do something with him.
All right, but we have Keith on the phone waiting right now. But before we do that, Fish, what are your thoughts?
I gotta agree, Errol. I can't believe we're even having these conversations. Only a few years ago, before Julius Randle got here, it looked like there was no hope ever. Phil Jackson, epic failure. Everything before that, I still remember Isaiah Thomas with his get ready for the experienced garbage that he came with. It was so bad. And now we're in this situation where we have a plethora of gifts and we only have one ball and we have too many guys that are good that need the ball. We've come a real long way as Knicks fans, and it makes me very happy that I call those good problems, not bad, not the problems we have. These are good problems to have. And you're right, Speedy. They're going to just wait because you can't extend them right now and trade them. So if it doesn't work, they're going to move him. But what they really could use him for is what we really saw be a problem in the playoffs is who's going to run that second unit when you have to take Brunson out, and we can't play Brunson so many minutes. So really, if you stagger his minutes, he'll start and he'll close the game, but he's going to be acting more like a sixth man running the second offense as ball creator to be that guy. Because OG, we saw, is not really that kind of creator. Bridges is, but he can play off the ball as well, and he's not going to come off the floor all that much either. So you really have kind of this more balanced lineup. Now, the problem is, can Randle play a small ball 5? Can he defend centers? I don't think he can. We'll see if he can. They're going to try that as a justification to paying him, because they'd like to pay him if he can fit in with this team that they built in his absence. And they kind of did it so fast that he was there not that long ago, putting up, if you remember, he was putting up all NBA type numbers before he went down. And when he was playing with OG, those few games that they played, they were unstoppable. They only lost 2 games out of 20 or something like that, when they were all 3 of them together. So we got another piece with Bridges now. Hart and Devo are going to expect more minutes because of how they played. There's, we'll see what happens, but these are good problems, not the types of problems Knicks fans are used to.
All right, put them on.
All right, Keith, what do you got?
Okay. I want you to ask Fish if he thinks Luka Doncic is a good player.
Before you do that, I brought up numbers. I brought up numbers for you because you say that Luka Doncic isn't a good defensive player. Do you know what?
Everybody.
Do you know what? Do you know what? Hold on. Let me speak. Be quiet. Be quiet, and let me speak for a second. Do you know what ORTG means? in the NBA. Do you know what it means?
Or what?
ORTG means in the NBA.
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Do you know what ORTG means in the basketball world?
No, I don't.
Okay. I'm going to explain it to you. I'm going to explain it to you so you can understand, because you think Luka Doncic isn't a good defensive player. It calculates individual offense to defense rating. Do you know where he's ranked? Do you know where he's ranked in the NBA? Do you know where he's ranked in the NBA?
No, how would I if I don't even know what that
I'm going to tell you. He's ranked 9th in the NBA. 9th.
Okay.
9th.
All right.
In the NBA.
So, that's great. That's great. You and your stats. Let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
Does he get smoked 1-on-1 every time?
Does he get smoked 1-on-1?
Do they go right at him? And you know it's me that he's not a good defensive player. So does Fish. I'm not saying he won't be. He's gotten better. He's a great offensive player. I would still take him in the top 2. That's not what I'm saying. Top 2 or 3 players. But he is pretty big players, man.
Okay. The Celtics smoked him in the finals, but besides that, he played well defensively.
Every round.
The rest of the playoffs, he played well defensively for his standards. I'm not saying he's like an elite defender. He's
nobody. I never said that he was.
No, he's not even average. Yes, and you know it.
I just told you. I just gave you a number.
So
I don't care about that stat.
But it's an important stat.
I do the eye test. Now you know what? Okay,
you and Mikey C need to marry each other.
Defensive player.
You and Mikey C need to marry each other. You really do. You really do.
Errol will gladly DJ that wedding.
I'll marry him. Okay.
Dude, Keith, I answered you in the chat.
Ask Fitz if he thinks he's good defensive.
He says he thinks he answered you in the chat.
What?
Look,
he says he thinks he answered you in the chat.
I didn't look at it. I didn't see it.
What did he? What did you answer? What did you answer?
Look, he was one of the better post defenders in the league. At one point, he was second in the NBA.
He's one of the best post defenders in the league. That's what he said.
That's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
He was like, I don't have the final standings, but he was second at one point this season.
It's nothing to do with the Three Stooges. And you watch the game. Yeah, you watched in the playoffs. That's fine. Everybody watches the game. And
Barkley and Shaq and Ken Smith all say he's a big defensive liability.
Oh yeah.
You guys know the game better than him.
And you think Shaq was a good defender? You think Shaq was a good defender?
I said that's what they said about Luka.
Who cares what they said? Shaq wasn't a good defender.
In the past, he's had defensive issues. He's gotten better.
Why would I take advice from Shaquille O'Neal telling me that he's a good defender?
Barkley, it doesn't, and Shaq, that doesn't mean they were better, great defensive players. It has nothing to do with that. I said they know the game better than us.
Okay.
And Kenny Smith definitely knows the game.
Keep in mind,
a great defensive player.
Keep in mind, most of the times that people were complaining about Luka Doncic's defense was in the NBA Finals when he was playing with a knee injury, and the Celtics have very good 2s, 3s, and 4s.
Stop it. His whole career, they've been saying it.
Early in his career, yes, I will admit that. But late, he's gotten better every year defensively.
Yeah, he improved a little bit. He's still not. He's at best mediocre.
That's fine. It doesn't make him a liability. There's two different things.
Well, you know what? And it doesn't matter. He's still well worth it. He's very slow, okay? And you know it. Maybe he is okay as far as posting up because he's strong. Okay, maybe you're right, Fish, on that. But as far as guarding a guy, 1-on-1, he's going to get smoked every time.
Did you say he's slow?
So slow.
Like that, I have a hard time believing Luka Doncic and slow in the same sentence.
He's not slow.
Luka Doncic?
He's 6'10". The dude is enormous playing a point forward.
Why does he run? If he's so slow, why does he run the point a lot?
I didn't say he's so slow. Why does he run the point? Because he's a great passer and shooter.
He's pretty good up and down the court, too. He's not as slow as you make him out to be for a guy his size.
He's not fast by any means.
No, he's not LeBron James, but he's
not 80% of the guys in the NBA. He's not, you know what I mean? But he's great. Don't get me wrong, I'd still take him. You're not listening, mate. As far as he's not fast or fleet-footed by any means, you know that. Come on, do the eye test.
So was Magic Johnson a bad basketball player for the same reason?
Well, Fish, he can't hear you because he's on the other side. He can't. You guys are in two different areas, so he can't hear you. He's saying
Magic Johnson.
You're going to say Magic Johnson was a bad defensive player because Magic Johnson played the same way.
Magic Johnson wasn't. He's great at. Since he wasn't great guarding a guy 1-on-1. Magic and Bird were amazing. But Magic was he was an all right defensive player. He had good hands, but he wasn't known again. He wasn't a great defensive player. He didn't have the same type of game. He had no outside shots, so he did not have the same type of game as Luka. Not even close. Nothing
Same
in there.
defensive game.
Who won in 87-88, the NBA championship?
The Lakers.
Okay. The rest of my case.
I said Magic was great, not defensively.
No, but you just said that I never saw him at the elite part of his game. He was at the elite part of his game.